At 11:51 p.m., my screen ignited like a revelation, piercing, unrelenting. A text from my mom. "It's settled. You're out of the family now." Moments after, my sister liked it, as if disloyalty was a group activity. I'm Sophia Johnson, 32 years young, a numbers expert who's devoted her whole grown-up existence to mending others' disasters. I held back tears. I skipped the questions. I simply fired up my computer, accessed all the services I'd covered for them, and began selecting terminate. Power supply, coverage policies, home loan, erased. By 12:03 a.m., their reality started dimming into shadows. For ages, I'd been their unseen backer, bankrolling affection masked as devotion. This evening, the economy tumbled. Their banishment arrived via notification. My response landed via financial portal. Before I dive into the aftermath, share your location with me, so I can sense I'm not alone in having to switch off the power for kin. Folks often claim kin bonds last eternally. Yet in ours, eternity carried subscription charges. The home payment that stayed current, my signature, the vehicle protection that oddly settled itself. Each one-time plea had a repeat schedule. I'd convince myself it stemmed from affection, duty, the proper choice. Mom labeled it assistance. Yet aid that's insisted upon isn't aid, it's toil. Dad avoided speaking up, a guy hypersensitive to disputes. Qley, my sibling, was the favored one, outspoken, charismatic, immune to fallout. And I served as the monetary barrier. Each meltdown halted at my approval. It began modestly, a land levy notice when I was 26. They teetered on repossession. I transferred funds instantly. Mom dubbed me her protective spirit. I trusted her words. Next followed the energy costs. The auto, Qley's schooling fees, 18 grand annually. Odd how protectors always wind up covering costs in torment. Structure became my survival tactic. Following a youth of turmoil, I mastered sorting, archiving, and arranging it all. But this evening, those categories seemed like chains. Each invoice, each credential, each automatic deduction proved how thoroughly I'd been conditioned to support. I once believed affection meant persistence, that enduring quietly would make them value my presence. Yet quietness doesn't gain you warmth, it generates statements. As I reviewed decades of kin crises, I at last spotted the cycle. This wasn't a collapse, it was a ledger. Each input I provided to their calm deducted from my serenity. I wasn't forfeiting relatives, I was compiling records. On the following evening, the residence ceased resembling banishment. It resembled an examination space. The monitor's light transformed documents into testimony, not sorrow. The cup's edge reflected illumination like a reliable pulse. I wasn't forfeiting relatives. I was reviewing an entity that labeled itself one. Mom instilled in me young that quietude was endurance. You avoid confrontation, you adjust. But quietude can be honed like metal. Applied precisely, it slices neater than quarrels. Once the rings halted, I commenced tallying. Not currency, cycles. How warmth trailed transfers, how regrets surfaced post-payments. The epiphany wasn't boisterous, it was precise and composed. Directories grew by label and date. Each outlay morphed into a segment with background. Home loan, schooling, coverage, crises, every omitted gratitude converted to blanks. I constructed what they omitted to erect, clarity. Julia's counsel emerged from past exchanges. If security is required, record it all. Thus I proceeded sans theatrics. I output ledgers and tagged captures. I verified endorsements and aligned timings. By 3 a.m., the ground evoked a subdued strategy center, not disorder. Mapping, chart trails linking allegiance and rationale. The quietude gained a cadence. It no longer pained. It self-arranged into concentration. Concentration self-arranged into structure. Structure resembled air post-fog. It stabilized my grip and respiration. I enumerated repeated expressions next to repeated charges. We merely require aid this period. It's brief. You get it, don't you? The wording resembled bills scented with charm. Courteous terms seeking instant pulls from my calm. At 6:12, dawn touched the workstation's border. Brew rose like a minor climate event. The table displayed my kin's chronicle in lines. Each figure was an admission they'd evade voicing. Each sum was a limit I'd financed. I at last grasped peace's essence. Not pardon, exactness. Not yielding. Verification. Peace wasn't leniency, it was quantification. A gauge readjusted following years of imbalance. Daybreak delivered Mom's initial recording. You've created chaos. Contact us. No remorse, merely directive. Identical dialogue, identical roles. This instance, I rejected the role. I composed one response. I'm settling ledgers, you ought to as well. Then I dispatched it and permitted quietude to operate. The device vibrated. I remained still. For years I confused remorse with kindness, but remorse was solely obligation with accrual, and I ceased covering dues for inclusion. The urban landscape glowed beyond my pain. I shut the directory, released breath, and grounded myself. This wasn't fury. It was adjustment, an existence restored to equilibrium. This isn't retaliation, it's reckoning. Remark 1 if remorse ever compelled you to cover their charges. Remark 2 if you're grasping limits and inhaling anew. On the subsequent evening, the hush possessed cadence. It no longer stung. It self-sorted like a schedule, panels active. Directories straight, testifiers poised. Home loan, coverage, schooling, levies, each panel contained figures with keen borders. Julia rang precisely at 11. Her tone was firm, incisive, detached. All prepared, every invoice I responded. Excellent, thus you're not seeking return, you're imposing it. She outlined the phrasing. Serene, accurate, deadly, header, pending sums, Johnson, kin ledger, content, exact, official, timed. This message constitutes official alert of refund owed. Commence a 30-day return schedule or encounter judicial steps. No warnings, no begging, fact, presented as protocol upon dispatching the hush inhaled. 12 minutes on, the responses landed. Dad, let's act sensibly. Mom, how might you inflict this upon us? Kayla, you're deranged, you're dismantling the kin. They weren't stunned by their routine. They were stunned I'd ceased supporting it. I placed the device screen downward, allowed outcome to present itself. At 12:03, the display pulsed crimson. Rings piled like emergency beacons. Restore the illumination, Mom sobbed. We'll mend it come morning. Morning had materialized. They lingered in obscurity. Julia's dispatch hit right away. Flawless, relay all, lodging at first light. I relayed Sans ritual. My label rested in the title. Sophia Johnson, a label I'd employed to rescue them. This night the identical label safeguarded me. I accessed one final file. The estate document they boasted over. Ownership review. My label persists as main, prudence formerly, authority presently. I drafted a further alert, attorney included, phrasing pristine, contained. Ownership stays mine pending some clearance. Any shift efforts provoke swift measures. No wrath in the clauses, solely adjustment. A gauge restored to accuracy. Kayla messaged anew at 1, you're without mercy. Dad suffers from this. Empathy once served as my tool, they tugged it recreationally. I detached the tool. The apparatus quit groaning. I reviewed the register aggregates. Figures straightened like iron supports. They could bear load independently. I at last permitted them. Beyond, the metropolis faded to murmurs. Within, my dwelling rang authentic. Cooler drone, timepiece pulse, even respiration. No alerts, no tasks. At 2:11, another note. Mom, maintain this confidential. We're kin, I entered 3 terms. It already stands so, for confidentiality isn't concealment. It's recording sans regret. And kin groups aren't exempt from arithmetic. I shut the machine to rest. Left the directory active mentally. Not ire, synchronization, not reprisal, method. By daybreak, the claim bundle would advance. Verified delivery, view confirmations, cutoffs. The sort of assurance currency comprehends. The sort they instructed me to deliver. The sort I at last retained. They declared me excluded from kin, thus I rendered it formal. By Thursday dusk, the rap at last sounded. 3 firm taps on the entrance, not frantic, not courteous, simply presumptuous, via the viewer. My folks and Kayla, identical stance, identical routine. Mom gripping a binder she failed to grasp. Dad rigid practicing his command. Kayla lingering like a silhouette feigning purity. Noah glanced from the seat. Your decision, he murmured softly. I unlatched the entrance, yet not fully. No welcome, merely room for reality to pass. Mom voiced initially, we arrived not for conflict, we seek to correct it. Sophia, Kayla appended, we long for you. Yet it wasn't sorrow I detected in their gazes. It was reckoning. You don't long for me, I stated, you long for entry. Weeps ensued, gentle and rehearsed. Mom's tone quivered, we overlooked the extent this reached. To what depth must it reach for you to perceive me? I inquired. Dad advanced, palms extended, tone calibrated. Let's mend, Sophia, we're kin. I denied with a gradual head shake. You seek not mending, you seek dominance. They appeared perplexed, as though appearing sufficed as incantation to reverse all. You declared me excluded from kin, I recalled them. I'm merely fulfilling your desire. Mom's gaze shimmered. We acted in ire, individuals utter such. You uttered them, I countered, and intended them when they suited you. Kayla's tone pierced, keen, fragile. Will you truly demolish us over funds? I nearly chuckled. Funds. You demolished yourselves via presumption. Dad breathed via nostrils like a signal. You've altered. Indeed, I affirmed, that's the appearance of limits. The hush extended amid us. Mom extended a hand, fingers shaking. What are we expected to undertake now? I responded gently. Reconstruct, or abstain, but not atop my frame. Kayla's ire fractured. You'll lament this. I gestured to the binder she clutched. Perhaps, yet at minimum it'll be my lament, not your invoice. Mom's weeps shifted to supplication. We merely require you once additionally. Once additionally, I mirrored. That's eternally the cost of calm with you. Dad grumbled of pardon. I locked gazes with him. Pardon carries no gratis tag. It demands candor. None extended it. I retreated, preserving the entryway amid us. This lacks discussion, I stated softly. It's a ruling. Mom's hand dropped beside her. Kayla eyed her footwear. Dad's mandible clenched and held. You forfeited not a child, I stated. You forfeited entry. Then I secured the entrance. No bang. Merely the gentle noise of limits locking. They lingered outward for multiple minutes. Upon peeking via the viewer once more, they'd vanished. Solely the corridor glow persisted, pulsing like a fading routine. Behind, Noah released breath. Resolution, he queried. No, I stated, rectification. They imparted allegiance. I imparted fallout. By the moment the tribunal concluded all, the tempest had passed. Julia's dispatch reached midday. Matter concluded. Refund assured. 2 clauses that echoed both judgment and liberation. Their ledgers suspended. The dwelling auctioned. Obligations at last linked to their labels, where they perpetually pertained. The hush that formerly tormented me presently droned mild, constant. No further midnight summons or one slight request, just calm. The variety that endures merited. I prepared brew and omitted device inspection. No signals, no mandates, just inhalation. The residents sensed unburdened now. Even the cooler droned milder. For the initial occasion in years, I existed sans duty. I ceased being their buffer. I became my personal base. That midday, I boxed the final container from my prior abode. Contained were invoices I formerly termed testimony. I nearly discarded them, then comprehended they weren't testimony any longer. They were tributes, chronicles of an existence I endured. I erased the table, observed the figures dissolve like a record shutting on prior times. It sensed not deprivation. It sensed rectification. The arithmetic equilibrated. Thus did I months onward. I approached my ancestors' tomb. Lilies swayed in the breeze. I murmured, it's complete. And I vow the breeze murmured, reply, well done. When individuals inquire the sensation of forfeiting kin, they anticipate sorrow. Yet it senses like expanse. At last inhaling within my personal form, I don't restrict their contacts. No necessity. Hush already conveys sufficiently. Noah decanted 2 vessels of vintage that evening. To calm, he proposed. To limits, I countered. If you've selected calm over remorse, this segment awaits you. Endorse, distribute, and join notifications. For another requires this narrative as well.